Social Perspectives, hosted by J. Gentile Everett, is brought to you by the Renaissance Ministry.
Hello and welcome to Social Perspectives. I'm J. Gentile Everett. Today we are going to talk about the church in crisis. COVID-19 has been a presence that we all have surely felt. Now we must recognize there's been a change in our churches, and we must traverse through this maze and rise above it all. Today we have moderator Quentin Jamel Williamson of the Hammond Creek Baptist Association in Clarkton, who will share his views as we move to a new place in ministry. We will be right back. Welcome back to Social Perspectives. We are honored today to have a very special young man who has been with us in other places and in other venues. So we're glad to have moderator Quentin Williamson with us today. Thank you so much, moderator, for being here with us.
I'm glad to be here, honored to be here.
Thank you so much. We're going to get right to it. The first thing I want to say to you, we know the crisis that has come along with COVID-19 is real. Churches have felt it, the community has felt it, and the like. What kind of impact has it had on churches in your area?
I think for us, it's been major in terms of attendance and financially.
Yes.
Because in the rule, if they don't come, they don't pay.
I see.
And many of our churches don't have millions sitting in an account to suffice themselves.
Yes.
So it's been a major blow for most pastors with salary,
Yes.
with ministry tools,
Yes.
and trying to maintain some sort of mission
Yes.
to help those that are in need. So it's
Wow.
been really critical.
I'm sure it has been. During these times when we have these crises going on in our churches, I've discovered that many times churches maybe overthink some things during a crisis because they're not meeting as much, they're not studying as much in terms of fellowshipping and the like.
Right.
Have you found that churches are perhaps more critical about church activity because they are in idle more because of the lack of fellowship?
I think that they are more so based on inactivity because now they're seeing just the pastor, just the preacher,
Yes.
and they're able to subtract from his noise, his ability and skills. And if you have nothing, there's nothing going to be felt. So they're able to sit home and there's nobody around them to nudge them and shake them, and they can concentrate on what is or what's not being said and being done.
I see. What about preaching? I think you've been one of those pastors that would preach in your pulpit during this COVID crisis, and then you will put it on Facebook or you will run it through some social media platform.
Right.
How has that been, preaching maybe in a building by yourself?
The first year, it was, for me, I enjoyed it, truthfully, because I knew I was there for an hour, and there was, I felt better.
I see.
But eventually it became taxing, the drive home.
Sure.
And you miss that response that you get from the pew. So the African Americans are responsive people, so that you miss that after a while. So.
I would think some of the energy is taken out of the service, particularly when pastors are used to having that energy coming from the pulpit to the pews and the pews back to the pulpit. The call and response kind of motif that we have.
Yes.
Other pastors in that area, have you heard them talk about how they liked it, how they didn't like it? What's the general feeling?
Many of our pastors have gotten to a point where I think very few of them did not have full worship.
I see.
For most of the COVID, they had full worship the regular way. Except for
Wait, moderator now. How do they have it? How do they have worship the regular way?
Truthfully, they had some drop off, but most of the memberships are not as large.
I see.
And I think we have one of the largest ones in our area, but most of them, their max is 50.
I see.
And so they're able to space it out that way, so they could have a number of people in there and not be in violation. But
Wow.
most of them very seldom, from what I've heard them talk about, they didn't do it, they didn't stop. They did parking lot, of course, that became a thing of our time, but they didn't stop.
All right, okay. I'm glad they didn't stop, but I was just wondering, they were not in a building.
Some were.
You mean to tell me some of them decided to run the risk and go in a building with all of these restrictions?
Well, you know this from being a passing the rule. When you passing the rule, you meet up with rule thoughts and theories.
Let's see.
And older pastors in the rule tend to sort of don't take down.
I see.
And so they did what they did because they didn't know any other way. You know?
I just would think that's a risky proposition given the climate of the day and the number of deaths and the number of people that got sick. I mean, sometimes we take unnecessary risks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was wondering, though, I guess.
But we don't know another way, then
Wow.
that's the only way you know how to go.
Okay, so COVID has made an impact probably negatively on most churches, financially and spiritually in terms of fellowshipping and the like.
Yes.
Has there been any advantages to it?
I think that, for me, I think that churches have seen the benefit of the pastor.
Let's see.
A lot of times before he has help. In the rural church, the pastor has become the janitor, he's the sound guy, he's the videographer,
I see.
all those things. And so now you're seeing that he is a vital component to what the church does.
I see. Well, let me just tell you one of the things that I have found interesting about COVID. I think COVID has taught churches everywhere, irrespective of race or social status. I think it has taught the church that we are not a building. A church is not about brick and mortar. I also think it has taught many of us that we've spent a lot of money in buildings, edifices, and the beauty of it. And that's good. And surely God should be glorified through our building, no doubt about that. But I just want people to understand the church has never been a building. The church is a fellowship. It is a spirit of Christ. It's not a building. And so many churches have this, I don't know, many decided, all right, I'm not going to go to this church because they are not in a building. And it's sad when we think of church being a building, we reduce who and what Christ really is.
I think so. And I think also, it's also allowed people that were teetering on the fence of coming anyway,
Yes,
to make a decision of where they want to go.
I see.
You know, and if your church is not the thriving, vibrant situation online, when we do return, I wonder to myself, how will church look in the new church eras? You know, it's going to be scary, especially in the rule.
You're probably right. Now, have you all gone back into you all's building?
Yes.
Okay, y'all going back into the buildings. Okay, good. So much I got to ask you about y'all going back into the building and starting back, trying to have service like you used to have it. We're going to have to take a break right now, and we're going to come back in the second segment and talk about that. We want everybody to know we have with us moderator Quentin Williamson with us, and we're talking about the crisis of the church that we are dealing with in COVID-19 and how we're going to get out of it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When you're in need of making the old new again with beautiful upholstery, D. Berry's Upholstery is the best, whether it's automobile interior or exterior, boats, church pews, or any residential or commercial seating and the like. Look no further. D. Berry Upholstery's got you covered. Call D. Berry's at 910 276-2265 and experience New Again.
Welcome back to Social Perspectives. We're going to pick up our conversation as we're trying to deal with the crisis of COVID-19 and the impact it has had on our worship experiences. Moderator, I'm going to ask you about going back into your church. Do you all plan to establish a liturgy like you had before, where you had the responsive reading and you had the scripture reading and the choir singing, or are you going to try to modify your worship services?
I think that component of worship is probably obsolete.
Yes.
For us right now, all we have Sunday school the normal way,
Yes.
and then we go straight into singing and then straight into preaching.
Yes.
All those things, that announcements, that's sort of, to me, COVID shows that you can do it in a short period of time.
Yes.
Get a lot from it.
Yes.
But I think that way is done.
Well, I'm going to just tell you how I feel about that. I really believe that there's been a major advantage COVID has brought to the church. Now, Lord knows I don't want anybody sick, and I'm not telling anybody dying or anything like that, nothing like that. But when I look at now, the minister can spend more time in actually delivering the word and grappling with the scriptures and being more theologically perspicacious and cogent and clear, because you do not have to compete with all of these other things that you have going on historically in our churches. So I really think what COVID-19 has really done, it is revealing those pastors who are not habitual study people.
True.
And it's really exposing those who fail to give the word adequate time to present to their people. Because see, now the word is actually the centerpiece. We've been saying it.
Right, but now it is.
Now
and
it
I
is.
think that also it shows you, like you said, it exposes those persons who have taken time to cultivate a message.
That's right.
But also it shows you the abstract from the noise you hear around the sermon.
Yes.
You have to have something to say.
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. The one thing that I do love about preaching is, I think preaching has to be informative.
Yes.
I think preaching has to be a moment where people actually learn something and not just leave there feeling something.
Yes.
I think what we have done historically is we have chosen to have services and sermons of feeling more so than sermons of instruction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now that we are in a different place, the pastor is called upon to actually break the bread of life and to study that word and to present it in a way that will help people learn.
Yes. But I think for you that's easy. You're doing that forever. So it helps, I think, guys like me to watch you in that element, just solely watching that, because we can learn from seeing you. Because I think prior to COVID, I don't think we remember you being on Facebook as
Yes,
often.
no, I wasn't at all.
And so it's beneficial for me to go
Okay.
back on Monday and watch,
I see.
and then I can see, okay, this is how it should be done.
Oh, well, you're very kind. I'm going to take that as a compliment. Now, you're the moderator of an association. How many churches do you all have?
I think 12.
You have 12 churches. So that means you have 12 fellowships that have come together to formulate or to form an association who embrace a set of ideals and all of those kinds of things. Congratulations on that. I'm proud of you having done that. Will you all ordain a minister who's in a same-sex marriage?
That is an easy question, but a tough question.
Okay.
I can tell you that as a group, we will not.
You will not. Okay. And now tell me why you will not.
One, because of where we are located. And you know that rural churches and rural areas have thoughts about certain things.
Okay.
We allow some things to slide, some things don't. And so I think that based off of culture and how it's impacted and affected us, some people don't care how much is moved along, their thought is their thought.
Okay.
And in the rule, that's just not, that's a major taboo.
Okay, so are you saying to me then that it's considered a sin?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have sin in various baskets, or do you place it all in one? Is there a separation in the sin vortex in your area?
In my area, yes.
Oh, okay.
In my area, there are certain sins that are worse than others, and that's just the culture that I pastor and that I'm with. Now, I'm not saying I put it in that context, but that is what it is. In the rule where I am, certain sin, lying, stealing money, whoremonger, those are passable sins.
Passable. Wait a minute. We coined a new phrase, everyone, and I want y'all to know the moderator. The moderator just coined a new phrase. I love that phrase. I got to talk about that maybe in the next segment. Passable sin. I got to make sure. I want everybody to remember that. Okay. A passable sin, am I interpreting this right, means it's wrong, but we can live with it. We all right with that.
You are from the rule, and
Yes.
you know that there are some things that you can do,
I see.
and they'll say, well, that's just how it is.
Just how it is.
And
But this is another one. I mean, this same-sex marriage.
this would become one of those impassable sins.
Impassable sin.
That you cannot.
Just can't do that.
Yeah. That's one of those things that will get you fired, hung upside down, and burned.
I see.
Yeah.
Now, he's speaking metaphorically, everyone. I want to make sure everybody know that.
Okay.
We need not talk about figurative. At least he's not talking about literal. I hope he's not. But anyway. So you're suggesting to me then that there are various standards now we're talking about sin. Sin has different standards. So this is a low sin, and this is a high sin, and we're going to treat them accordingly.
I think to make sure I qualify it correctly, I'm speaking from the culture.
Sure.
They have put it, in that context. I can deal with this, but can't deal with this. And I've been in meetings where they have justifiably said, this is okay sin, and this is not okay sin.
Oh my goodness. Look, y'all got to stay tuned. We're going to come back in this third segment because I'm going to tell you, the moderator has opened up a wonderful can of worms that we just must explore. You all stay tuned. We're going to come back with the final section, and we're going to be talking about these passable and impassable sins. Stay tuned.
Hunger has never been more satisfied as it is when it tastes like the delicious Southern cuisines from the Clinton Inn. Here, flavor is never compromised and palate satisfaction always meets the expectation. The weekly buffet features all of the special dishes to which we have grown accustomed. Come dine with us on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays, starting at 11 a.m. and enjoy a scrumptious meal at the Clinton Inn in Laurinburg, North Carolina, where food has never tasted so good.
Welcome back. We are in our final segment with the moderator, and we were talking about passable and impassable sins. We got to go and revisit that because we have some more questions about that very subject. Okay, now that we know that we kind of have passable and impassable sin, the question now that I have to raise, what does that do for sin in general? Does it mean then that we have big sinners or sinners we can live with and sinners we can't? Is that theological? Does that fit in with the views of God somewhere. Y'all help me with that.
You gotta, first of all, you gotta understand that in rural pastoring, theology really has no place.
So we're talking about it. So we're talking about more. It's more of a social theology.
It's right. So I think that what happens is people allow certain sins to be until they are sick of the person who's committing the sin.
I see.
So let's say for instance a pastor, they will allow the pastor to have certain proclivities
I see.
and certain sins until they're tired of him,
Yes.
and they'll use those very things to hang him with.
I see. Now that's very interesting. My goodness, that's an interesting perspective. All right, now tell me this then. So if your association will not ordain a minister in a same-sex marriage, so if that's the case, I guess we may as well forget about him or her pastoring a church or being called to the church and having the sanction of the association with it.
I'm sure.
Well, you're in position to know.
Well, as long as I'm there, that would be our stance on it.
Okay, I'm taking this to believe then, would you marry two people of the same sex?
I would not.
You would not. And why would you not do that?
My personal belief is that it is just not a part of what I would consider, I don't want to say righteous behavior, but I would consider that to be outside of the scope of what I would hold a passable sin.
Oh, there we go again. Y'all, there we go again with the pastor saying.
I think I kind of hold it because Paul does talk about it as being an unnatural thing.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. And I'm not differing with you.
Right.
Just throwing out something I want you to consider and think about. I was teaching a group of ministers some time ago, and I remember getting to that very passage that you mentioned. And it was about, Paul said, unnatural affection.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to just take a moment and consider unnatural affection. Now, to the person who has been attracted to the same sex that they have, to many of them, they feel that it is very natural. So when you say unnatural affection, is that a judgment call? Is that a social or societal call? Unnatural affection appears to be on the surface, as we all looked at it, would be a woman having affection for another woman or a man having affection for another man.
Mm-hmm.
But suppose to that person it is natural to them, and that's all that they know, and that's the only attraction that they have. Then do we call that unnatural? Would it be unnatural for them to do anything other than that? Just a question. Just trying to get out.
I think that's a good question and a good way to put it, but I think look at the model and how those things shift. When a male and male relationship comes, there is what's called, if I'm correct, a top and a bottom. That may be the case. Then there's one that becomes the dominant male person. And there's a female type man, you know what that's called. Or whenever woman as a dominant butch or whatever you want to call her, then there's this prissy female. That they're recreating, in my opinion, the normal male-female roles, trying to copy that, but it's not the same thing.
I see.
I guess I'm saying, if you're going to be gay, I've very seldom seen two masculine, hairy men together and both of them were dominant. There's always one who becomes submissive and becomes the female role in that relationship. So to me, if you're recreating the natural order.
So your issue therefore is in someone, I guess, perverting or trying to recreate the model of God.
Right.
So God gave a model, and now when someone tries to, in effect, alter that model, then it becomes sacrilegious and horrible and all of those kind of things. Okay. Now, what we have to look at in that, what about love? Is it possible? I'm not an apologist for gay life at all, but I'm just wondering here, what about love? Is it possible that these two people are actually in love as they see it, as they understand it to be?
And that's fine. If that's their perspective and perception, that's fine. But it's my job to, in essence, hold true to what I believe the Bible and God is speaking.
I see. All right, so what about the other churches that actually perform these ceremonies? Some ministers do. How do we view them? Are they just wrong? Are they perverting the interpretation of marriage? What are your thoughts about that?
Again, I don't want to make it a thing but my personal opinion is that anybody that engages or performs those ceremonies or condones it, I think is totally outside of the bounds of God. And I don't think that they are fully aware of what they're doing and aware of what God wants them to do.
Okay, I have one last question because we're running out of time. I got one last question. Do they go to hell?
That's not my call.
In your view, if your ministers would ask you.
I think that hell is a choice or is there for anybody that desires to go. I don't know ultimately what their end will be. I'm hoping they will get it right before they go there, though.
Okay, but we're going to have to close because we're running out of time. I got to get you back, because man, we didn't finish this conversation, and there's so much more that I really need to talk to you about. So we're going to have to do a part 2 of this. But I do want to leave all of our viewers with just one idea, one closing thought, and that is, when you start talking about going to heaven and going to hell, I want everybody to know we serve a God of mercy. And the God of mercy we serve is not a God who will take one act or one event and try to make a judgment about your entire life because of one little event. Just know God is much bigger than any single thing. We're going to have to leave you there, and we're going to thank you so much, moderator, for being here with us today. He was a fantastic guest. I want y'all to know that he is also the brother of a former guest that we've had here, Reverend Darrell B.J. Gibson, Jr. So it was just good having these brothers here with us. And of course, a relative of mine, and just so happy with all the things that he has done in his life and with his family. Give my love to the family and let them all know that we love them much. We're going to see you the next time on Social Perspectives. Please, everyone, look at the bottom of the screen and please give to this cause. We're just trying to share a message of love to all people. Please give $REN, capital R-E-N, capital M-I, 15. Look forward to seeing you the next time on Social Perspectives.